Nick, so good to see you today. We are going to talk through why 60% of wealth transfers fail and the conversation that every family should be having this holiday season. The holidays, of course, bring families together, multiple generations under one roof, which is why it's also a great time to talk about family finances and the legacy that you want to leave behind. So take a look at this. 60% of wealth transfers fall apart because of a lack of communication and trust. Why is it so hard for families to have these conversations?
Well, because money isn't really about money, it's about emotion.
Right.
And money so you think about it, parents are going to worry about about what their kids are going to think. Are my kids going to judge me? What if they think I made a bad decision? And then kids on the other side of that, they're wondering, well, what if this turns into an argument? What if their wishes is unfair to me?
Hmm.
So you have these polarizing things that tend to happen. And I think that's what causes this. A lack of communication, a lack of trust. What I find is there's a lot of people that will just not want to talk about money just because of maybe they just don't want their kids to know how much money they actually have. So they want them to know what they have, but they just don't want them to know how much money they have. As a matter of fact, we'll have a lot of times when people will come in and they'll say, maybe they've lost a parent that was a client of ours, and they'll say, hey, Nick, um, Dad talked at Thanksgiving dinner about a safety deposit box, but he never told us where it was or anything like that. Do you know
Yeah.
where that is? Or Dad mentioned this, but he didn't mention anything else, and it's just really vague. And when we started asking our clients about things, what we found is the reason that they didn't want to tell their kids what they had is they said, but we want them to know, but we just don't want them to know dollar amounts. We just don't want them to
Yeah.
know too much, right? And so one of the things that we put together, and people can actually shoot us an email to info@group10financial.com and ask for the peace of mind checklist. This is actually what it looks like. And what we did is we put this together because what we found is people just didn't want their kids to know the actual account numbers and the dollar amounts and stuff like that. So all this document does is it just tells them, it lists a whole bunch of things that you could itemize. And if you have, say, a safety deposit box, you would check mark on there, yes, I have the safety deposit box. And then in the section next to it, it just says location. So then you would put something like maybe Truist Bank, key is in the safe. It's like breadcrumbs. You're leaving breadcrumbs. You're telling the family, here's what I have, here's where to look for it. And if you have the right to look for it, you'll find it. But otherwise, you won't find it at all. And I think even that little step is better than not telling the family anything at all. And then what happens, I would
Right.
say 60% of the time, Aaron, people will come in and they say, yeah, we're trying to figure out all the stuff that they have, and we're just waiting for the mail to hit. And I'll ask, what do you mean by the mail to hit? And they'll say, well, we're waiting to get statements and bank notices,
Bills. Yeah.
bills, because we just don't know.
Yeah.
And so those are the types of things. Here's another pro tip too, is if you have things, let's say jewelry. I have a guy who just showed me he has a Scotch collection. If I have another person who has an art collection. And sometimes it's like that stuff gets put nowhere as to who gets it. And then the family comes in when it's too late, and then they say, well, I really like that. Well, I really like that too. And there's the problem. So one way to fix that is just take a picture of all the valuables that you have and then put a Word document together. Have a picture of the item right here, and then right next to it, a description of what that item is. And then right next to that, who gets it. And then right next to that, your initials. And just
Right.
have it on a line, like rows of all the items. And then that way, nobody can argue. When something happens to you, there's that document that has what it is, what it looks like, who gets it, and your initials. It's very hard to argue with a dead person.
You that
Sorry,
sounds
that
invaluable,
was
Nick,
crass.
but
That was bad.
no, it's true though. But I think you bring up another point, which is it's a lot for a lot of people, it's hard to do that prep work because then we are also confronting our mortality, right? We're also talking about
Right.
death in the same breath.
It's not fun. It's
No.
it's not interesting at all. And so, especially around the holidays, if we think about it, we don't want to talk about our mortality. It's not a sexy thing to talk about. It's better to talk about sports. Like before we went on the air, we were talking about how you went to a recent Bears game and froze your butt off.
But they won.
They did well.
They beat the
I mean, they're
Browns.
actually doing really good this year.
I
I'm a
know.
Bengals fan, and well, hey,
I
We
like
all know
Joe
what happens
Burrow.
there. But the thing is, we look at this like that's what people are kind of concerned about, is they're worried about is these financial decisions, these estate decisions, and they just never talk about it because they're worried about what's going to happen at the other end. And
Hmm.
I actually just look at it as there's no better time, and this is why we're talking about this now. There's no better time to have these conversations than when you have a captive audience.
Right. And I'm glad you say that because that was my next question. Why are the holidays perhaps the best time to have these conversations?
You get a whole bunch of generations around the room under the same roof. You're there because you love each other. You're there because you have a common ground, and it gives you a chance to talk about this during good times as
Yeah.
opposed to
Right.
not good times. Instead of waiting for something bad to happen, it's like a car. You don't wait for the engine to blow to start doing maintenance. And look at estate planning as just that. It's maintenance. If we think about that movie, It's a Wonderful Life, around the holidays, that's always a great one. Um, that movie is based off of relationships. It's based off of legacy. And so if you take that same mindset of relationships and legacy around the holidays, then you can just frame it in a different way to where estate planning is really taking the pressure off of the rest of the family and giving them clarity and giving them an understanding of what's going on so that it's not, well, I wonder what's going to happen if something happens to mom and dad. Well, I don't
Right.
know. I'm not going to be the one to ask. And that uncertainty is what causes problems.
And you're bringing up an estate plan. I want you to put a pin in that. We're going to come back to it. But first, what information should parents or grandparents share with their adult children?
Um, I would say things like where income comes from. So think about this from the fact that if you're working at a company, Lockheed, Siemens, Disney, wherever you worked, it's pretty obvious where your income's coming from. You're working. But once you retire, the kids don't know. They might worry that, geez, I hope nothing goes bad for mom and dad because I might have to step in and help them because I don't know where their income's coming from. So it might be helpful for them to know because it's not obvious, like Social Security, pension, minimum distributions, maybe investment money. Another thing that they might need to know is how are the bills paid? And that can be huge because if something happens and you're not able to make those bill payments, it might be helpful for them to know what's the process. Is it online bill pay? Are you using the old school paper checks? Is it direct in? What account is funding those bills? An easy way to do this is I'll tell people, normally they're paying the bills at the same computer and usually at the same desk. I'll say just put a notebook right next to where you're doing that work. And over the next 2 months, what I want you to do is anytime you're doing a bill pay, anything financial, you just open up that book, you put a date, and then you put down what happened. Today is January 5th, my Social Security check hits. January 7th, a bill comes for the energy. I pay that bill out of my Truist bank account or Wells Fargo bank account, whatever it is. You just put that. And then what happens is that family can open that up and see, oh, this is a day-by-day diary from a financial standpoint of what mom and dad do with the
Yeah.
finances. And that helps them. Where are your passwords? That's another thing. Oh my gosh. You think about if you can't access your money, then it doesn't matter how much you have if you can't access it. So you need to know where your passwords are, things like that. And your family also needs to know who's on your financial team, your
Mhm.
financial advisor, your CPA, your estate attorney, your insurance agent, who handles all that stuff. They need to know those names so that they're not having to run scared when something happens.
Right. Right. Okay, so you mentioned an estate plan just a bit ago. What are the most important legal documents that every family should be reviewing together?
So you have it right there. I love it. So, um, wills, trusts, power of attorney, advanced healthcare directive. Power of attorney is going to be generally for finance. Of course, before this, make sure your beneficiaries are up to date.
Yes.
Okay, I've seen, at a bank, they call it like a pay on death, POD. In the brokerage, they call it TOD, transfer on death. Some insurance, life insurance, annuities, those things, they'll call it beneficiary designations. It's basically putting where that money goes if something happens to you. And I've definitely seen plans every month where I will see somebody who has an ex-spouse as a beneficiary on there, a deceased child. I mean, you never think that, but I've seen it there, or sometimes no beneficiaries listed at all.
Right. Well, and just
So,
to butt in here real quick, Nick, this is important because those documents trump what's in the will, right?
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you have let's say you have a $500,000, this is a real case, $500,000 life insurance contract, and the beneficiary, the primary beneficiary, is an ex-spouse. It doesn't matter what you've got on that other side. It doesn't matter what the will
Right.
says. It is going to that beneficiary, and there's nothing you can do about it. So
Mhm.
you got to be careful of that. But then going back to that slide that you had up, your wills, your trusts, and sometimes people will get misconfused. Well, what should I have? Should I have a will or should I have a trust? What should I have? And that's something that you need to get with an attorney about and find out which is going to be better for your circumstance. But you need to have a financial power of attorney. Why? Well, if something happens to you, and let's say that the family needs to withdraw money to pay a medical bill or something, if you're not able to do it and you have no power of attorney, nobody can do it. The family would have to almost go to court to be almost court appointed to be the power of attorney to be able to do things, because the family couldn't call our office and say, hey, I'm the son, I need to take money from dad's account. We don't have the authorization to do that. Nobody
Right.
does.
Right.
And so you got to make sure you got that financial one done. Obviously, at least a basic will. But I would tell you that just having a will and the power of attorney and the healthcare directive, 40 to 50% of the people that we visit with for the very first time don't have that. This is one of the reasons why we partnered with some estate attorneys and estate services to be able to get this for people in their hands, because this is so important.
It
And
is.
so it doesn't matter if I pick a mutual fund or I pick a portfolio over here or that investment over there, but I get that part wrong. I've done a financial malpractice by doing that. And so you look at, if you have no document, even let's say you have a document but nobody understands it, that's just expensive paper. Where kids assume one thing, parents think it's something else. And I just think that you need to set the expectations, get the legal documents done, but then sit with the family and say, here's a reason why we did it this way.
Mhm.
Here's why you're the power of attorney for finance. Here's why you're the power of attorney for healthcare. We have sometimes people will split it up. Hey, one son is really good at financial stuff. The other one, the daughter's a nurse. She's going to be in a better position to handle the healthcare stuff. So when you do that, surprises disappear. And I think that gives people that clarity of knowing who's in charge, what's the intention behind it, here's why the decisions were made, and here's why we need to work as a team together as a family.
Right. You want your family to be able to kind of celebrate your life as opposed to argue amongst themselves after you pass. So, Nick, talking this through with you, clearly you have a lot of experience with this. Do you have any tips for families to help keep these talks positive instead of uncomfortable?
Um, have you ever seen that movie, The Godfather?
I haven't. I
It's
know.
been years, right?
Yeah,
I'm
I've seen the
digging.
beginning like a million times.
Yeah, I know the music, it's in my head, but I mean, the movie, I'm digging back to like the 80s. I just remember, I think there's a phrase in there where the Godfather is saying something like, someday this is all going to be yours. So here's how to take care of it. And I just think that that's almost the charge that we're giving, is we need to band together to remember that we're trying to honor values, we're trying to honor intentions, and we're trying to honor the family legacy. And that requires teamwork, because you know what? These days, I've had 60-year-olds all of a sudden have a stroke and be unable to do anything. I've had 70-year-olds have severe dementia and Alzheimer's and have to have their family come in at 70. I mean, we're not promised tomorrow. We're not promised tomorrow with good health either. And that's why you got to have these things in place, because it's better to sit around a table where everyone's around the table to start a conversation than around a hospital bed.
Right. Yeah, well said. Well, Nick, if somebody would like you in the room with them while they invite their family in, because it always helps, I think, to have
Yeah,
a professional in the room with you, kind of lower the temperature sometimes.
it
What
does.
What's the best way to reach you?
So people can go to our website, group10financial.com. Right there, you'll see a calendar link where we can set up a 15-minute strategy session call to really talk through the estate planning, that type of planning, and get the right things in order so
Yeah.
that you remain in control. That's the most important thing, is to build a plan so that you stay in control. Because if you don't stay in control, the courts will decide. If you don't decide, the courts will decide. And we got to make sure that it's done right so that the courts are out of it and that you have the control. And so go to our website, group10financial.com, and you can set up a 15-minute strategy session call with us, and we can help you through those things.
Yeah, I've heard it said, if you don't have a plan or a will, don't worry, the state does.
Yes, they do, unfortunately.
Yes. All right, Nick, happy holidays. Thanks for your time today.
Great being with you.